The progress of Fisher Enclave City is doing fantastic as it is so neat, so clean, and organized. Shall we introduce a little chaos by making this 3-point to a 6-point roundabout? Do we have enough understanding of bottlenecking to maintain order, or will there be mayhem? This is Captain Ahvious, and welcome to an advanced guide to bottlenecking. Let's pick up where we left off in the last episode, and it seems that I forgot to make this to a one-way roundabout. Nevertheless, it doesn't appear to have any vehicles backing, so it's not absolutely necessary to make it to a one-way. But why not? Let's go ahead and fulfill his dreams on becoming a true roundabout. It does no harm to keep him as is as a two-way, but it's much more accepted if it were going in a single direction. Therefore, so be it. While we're at it, we might as well make the others one way as well. These roundabouts were not meant to ease traffic but are aesthetic corners to make certain areas pop a little more. While we're at it, we might as well update some of our road networks and have the two lanes connect to the avenue, which makes some to become a four-way intersection. It is also about time for our Arc de Triomphe to transform to her true form by having up to 6 points in the roundabout, which is only half of the real-life Arc de Triomphe. But this is our alternate reality, and 6 points is as good as it'll get. A fair warning to everyone that having multiple points in a roundabout would just invite traffic chaos unless you have ample highway exits and entrances throughout your city. So far, our large roundabout is doing fine, except for the little hiccup on this road. Red or orange roads should not be treated as something to always be concerned about. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's traffic that should immediately be remedied. Yet from time to time, cars start to back up, and how can we fix it to make it run smoother with the least amount of effort? One solution would be to make it to a two-lane, one-way road going in or out. But if we did that, then they would simply go to another point in the roundabout and the backing would just transfer to another road. Nevertheless, the idea of having more lanes does help, but we need it to go in both directions, in and out. The simple vanilla solution to this is using the asymmetrical 3-lane road. So instead of being stuck inside the roundabout, there are now 2 lanes to occupy for vehicles that would want to turn left or right. Sometimes the easiest solution is just a road upgrade. If you play modded, extra network extensions is what you're looking for more road options. That and or traffic manager mod to force the right lane to only turn right. But look, we didn't need neither mods to make this work. Check out this driver. Don't do it, I say don't do it. He gone done it and went straight. Some drivers appear to compute that this route is shorter because of our slight curve in the main highway. There is also more traffic going around the roundabout. Again, this can easily be fixed with Traffic Manager mod, but this is a vanilla build and the only mods we use are visual mods. In any case, this interchange is basically this. I'm guessing that no one here is a stranger in using this design, or perhaps a dumbbell interchange. However, dumbbells always seem to back up because it has traffic stress from 4 different points. But if we were to think outside the box and provide an alternate route, the roundabout stress level would be 3 instead of 4. Now let's apply this logic to our current city by introducing alternate routes. First of all, they completely stopped using this road to go straight, so that's a thumbs up right there. There is also less crossing lanes when this alternate exit route is taken instead of this. I know that this is the original road network, but I had to showcase on why I did not use a dumbbell interchange. Basically, I encourage players to think of alternate solutions instead of using go-to designs, then get frustrated when it begins to break. As I mentioned in episode 10, that we'll be adding the oil industry here, so we should anticipate massive traffic due to oil trucks. Therefore, it is imperative to replace this asymmetrical road to at least a 4-lane two-way avenue. When expanding to a new area, it's absolutely necessary to set up your avenues for less traffic. I also went ahead and slightly modified the locations of the highway ramps connecting to the avenue. That's just in case they get any funny ideas of going straight ahead. Now the problem with this is again lack of lanes and crossing of lanes. A lot of the time you will need to be able to identify and micromanage issues, then remedy them before they become a major nuisance. So what we're doing is basically damage control. If you ignore your traffic and say things like, oh, it's not too bad, we're still 85% traffic flow, we're doing fine. Then as you grow, it becomes 80%, then 70%, and so on. The problem starts to stack until it becomes unbearable. Hence why it's necessary to be able to identify the issues and solve them as soon as possible. With this new setup, we have increased the number of lanes here with asymmetrical roads so there is less vehicles backing. Then we've provided alternate individual routes for less crossing of roads. Let's do a little exercise. I'll give you 20 seconds if you can identify what the issue is on the bottom half of the highway. This is actually hard to identify because just by staring at it, there is virtually no traffic. This is the main highway, and if vehicles needed to get on the highway, they have these routes to choose from. But of course, everyone is choosing to take this route. Everyone from the farming that grows across the bridge to the other trucks coming from the avenue, and there's also fishing trucks and other vehicles that would have to cross lanes with this bridge just to bottleneck into this closest exit route. The definition of bottleneck doesn't necessarily mean it becomes labeled as a bottleneck when you visually see vehicles backing up in one area. Sometimes bottlenecks are invisible. The only time they begin to show signs of bottlenecking is when your population grows to a certain amount, and it is only then when it becomes visually obvious. Some might consider that my definition of traffic or bottlenecking is overly exaggerated. If you're not looking at the bigger picture, then yes, I can see why one would think that. It's not that we're fixing or meddling things that are not broken, we are simply anticipating and preparing solutions before they become a problem. Much like one would consider that we've created too many schools and it was just a waste of money, or too many cemeteries and too many garbage facilities, and so on and so forth. However, since 0 to its current 30k population, Fisher Enclave City has not experienced any major issues. There has been no death waves, and no not enough educated workers alert, no too many garbage accumulation and whatnot, and we will carry this no major issue status to more or less 100k population. We have achieved this status in season 1 of my Organic Roads Let's Play series, and if you have not seen that, you may want to check out that completed series while this current season is ongoing. At least you have an idea on what to expect at the end of the city. And I also have other unpublished vanilla cities with the same pristine status, which I look forward to sharing in the future. What I'm doing is sharing my knowledge and experience because of my simple love of the game. However, my techniques may not work for everyone. It's quite possible that there are better strategies, or you may also combine other techniques to form your own style. You are the mayor of your own city, and it's ultimately your decision to use whatever strategy that works for you. If my videos helped you, then that is awesome. and I am forever grateful for those who took the time to express in the comments or a simple thumbs up of how much my videos have improved their gameplay. Whether you play vanilla or you play modded and would use my strategies to improve your city and whatnot, or use team assets because you want more variety, then that is all cool. I completely understand the want to use more than what the base game can offer. My city is simply a showcase that you can still build your dream city without using any mods or Steam assets. As a replacement for power lines, you can use earthquake sensors to jump the power from one end to another, but I did not opt to do that here. I figured that I might be able to jump the power from another area of the city, so for now, power lines will suffice. Here I am placing an individual highway ramp as close as possible to the bridge for the farm trucks to use. And notice how I've placed the ramp entry on the right side so the trucks will keep right until they enter the main highway. Now that the farming, fishing, ore, and other trucks have their own individual exits, there should be minimal traffic and bottlenecking in this area. We are now currently on this side of the map, and look how little we have left to fill in on this side of the river. Since we already have this minimal height bridge here, I copied this terrain height and placed them on both sides so we could create another bridge with the same minimal height. We are of course using the dig a hole to make a perfect vanilla bridge technique, which is an extremely long name to call it. So if anyone knows what it is officially called or any better suggestions on what to call it, then by all means, please write your suggestions in the comment section. Probably the hardest part of this bridge is having the pillar directly between the highway. I want the bridge pillar between the highway because I plan to add extra ramps as close as possible to the sides of the highway. And look at that perfect minimal height bridge. I just really dislike unnecessary tall bridges. Oh, but wait, we can still do more. We are currently using the industry avenue roads, and I want to add suspension to the bridge for a more dramatic effect since trucks will mostly use these roads. The struggle is going to be real here to have the two highways go between the bridge pillars and still look as parallel as possible. You're gonna see me make some adjustments to minimize the funky looking highways, so you're gonna have to excuse me while I concentrate on dealing with this. Well, that's not bad at all. It's definitely not terrible by any means, and so now all we need to do is to connect the ramps to the highways. Now these extra side ramps will not be the permanent design since we do not have these sides of the areas filled in. So these exits is still subject to be redesigned in the future after we've filled these areas with forestry extractors and processing buildings. At the time, I definitely did not think this through because vehicles coming from the main highway can't access this exit. So yeah, I will definitely revisit this custom interchange in the future. I probably should have made the exit parallel to this side, which totally works. Then at this point, I was a little confused on what direction this avenue should go because I don't have all the forestry buildings unlocked yet. However, on this side, I know that I want this avenue not to be parallel to the border of the map. I basically just want to keep the illusion that when you go to cinematics view that you're not completely sure on where the border is, but just know that it is in the general area. Right now, this loop is extremely large and unnecessary. But for the meantime, it will suffice, so try not to mind or take it too seriously on what I'm doing in this area. I am just making a skeleton road network that isn't finalized because not everything has to be perfectly done on the first take. The current priority is to add in the forest industry and just have it to the max 5th level to unlock all the forestry buildings, and only then can we finalize a design layout. It is just completely futile to exert so much effort in designing an area when the buildings you intend to use are not all unlocked. So a fair warning to everyone that this will intentionally not look pretty. That straight road goes on for too long and it vexes me. It vexes me severely. My only comfort is knowing that it is a temporary measure. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that ferry depots will still operate even though it is not connected to any roads? As long as it has power and water, it will do its job and disperse ferries to run the routes. Before you populate your coastlines, make sure that you finalize the terrain level. Right now, no one here is suffering from the floods, though most likely the other coastlines are slightly affected with flooding. But in case you have not been following alongside since episode 1 of this series, our coastline strategy is to simply make sure that there are no residential zoning on our coastlines or bank of the river. We will maintain to only have commercial zoning or other, so when there are floods, no residential buildings will be at risk to being demolished by unintentional tsunamis caused by terraforming. And we finally placed down the forest industry district, and again, do not pay attention to the lack of design. We simply want to complete its required worker count and produce resources to reach the max level 5, then all the buildings will be unlocked. It's an ugly process, but efficient and not time consuming. Also, the highway ramps in this area are still subject to change depending on what final layout we come up with. Oh, and yes, I'm quite aware that I have this tram avenue extending and yet it is not active. Our traffic flow is still holding at around 93%, so it's not a cause of concern. Nevertheless, we are ready to activate the tram tracks in case we somehow develop terrible traffic. I copied the terrain height here, which is a mistake because that height is to have roads go underneath. This bridge should have the height high enough for cargo and cruise ships to pass without having the top parts of the ships collide with the bottom part of the bridge. I will have to redo the bridge in a future episode. And of course, the dig a hole to make a straight vanilla bridge will never fail and is the go-to method for those who play modless or on console. It is definitely much more effective and less time consuming than eyeballing to try to make a straight bridge. Cargo harbors are available since the 28k population milestone, but I have yet to utilize it. The city isn't suffering from not enough goods shortages, so having cargo harbors is not a priority. But I do have in mind to place the cargo harbor here when we do need it. A reminder that this map does not have train lines, therefore no train cargo. Initially, this medium industry road is a bit too straight for too long and is slightly parallel with the border, which I dislike. I simply want to avoid making roads to indicate that it is the end of the tile, and in Season 1 I severely made that mistake. It's surprising that there's still tiny things you can adjust to improve your gameplay. Just look how terribly straight that highway is, and it also looks like it goes on for 2 game tiles. And because it was directly beside the border, it's a little too obvious that it is the edge of the map, even at cinematics view without the dashed borderlines. This was probably the only disappointing design flaw that I had with Season 1, but it was a learning experience which I will carry throughout my future city builds. The forest industry is among the largest that occupies the most space next to the ore industry due to their large buildings, while the oil industry has the smallest buildings but earned the most and because of their small sized buildings, it is also more prone to traffic, especially when you cluster them all together. Tricks you can use to scatter your oil structures is to mix them with unique factories, which are among the largest ploppable buildings in the game. You'd want to use the large gaps made by the unique factories to separate your oil structures. However, the biggest yet less significant issue with oil industry is the massive amount of ground pollution that it produces. There is simply no escaping the pollution and is a necessary evil for the oil industry to generate more income. However, when you reach the final milestone, you can opt to use the Eden Project Monument, which greatly reduces pollution throughout the city. Nevertheless, the Eden Project should be used with caution, because it will also severely invite more residents to move in your city, which is a recipe for a devastating death wave if you are not prepared for it. And the farming industry avenue comes to a full circle with the ore industry along the coastline that will inevitably meet with the oil and forestry industry. Along this coastline, I have not fully planned on what to do with it. I may use the eco water treatment plants to add as a variety option when it comes to sewage treatment. But we will definitely not be adding any fishing industry, because despite the fact that the eco water treatment plant indicates of having zero pollution, there is still a significant undetermined percentage of water pollution that would make it unsafe to drink or to fish in. We are nearly level 5 with the forest industry, so I'll just let the game run offline, which should just be a few minutes until the industry is at the maxed level. If you enjoyed the video or learned something, please consider subscribing. This is Captain Ahvious, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next episode.